Well, last Thursday, right here in this place, Dr. Blair Spindle, our campus pastor, asked us to take out our phones and to go to notes and put in, I believe. I don't know whether you did that or not, but I did. I took that out. And I want to share with you 4 things this morning that I believe. The first 3 are probably not the most important things in the world. I think they're fun. The fourth one is, I think, much more significant. But here's the first thing I believe. I believe that you can put Chick-fil-A sauce on anything and eat it. How many are with me there? How many are Chick-fil-A sauce fans? You know, on lead retreat, we got into this big debate, and, you know, Emma was at the table. Emma, I don't know where you are, but someplace in the room. Emma was making fun of me about Chick-fil-A sauce, and Gage, but Gage is a guy that likes Olive Garden, so I don't know what to say about Gage. But we were having this discussion, and I just told him, I don't like broccoli. I have a great story about broccoli that I'll tell you sometime if you want to hear it. But I believe that if you put Chick-fil-A sauce on broccoli and you don't like broccoli, you can eat broccoli, because I just believe in Chick-fil-A sauce. In fact, if you have any extra Chick-fil-A sauce, just share it with me, because I'll put it on anything. The second thing that I believe is that I believe that the days when I get to drive the golf cart around campus and pick you up and take you to class are some of my favorite days. You know, this was kind of the brainchild of Carson Shirola. I don't know where Carson is, but Carson had this idea that I would do this. And so they put a GoPro camera in there, and I got to pick a lot of you up the first day of class. And if you ride in the golf cart, by the way, it's not a safe golf cart. I'll just tell you that up front. Doesn't steer very well. I hit some gates. I ran over some curbs. I even drove on grass. None of that was my fault. Not sure that they're going to allow me to drive the golf cart anymore, but I have this series of questions that I ask you if you ride in the golf cart with me. Things like, how you feeling your first day of class? What's your major? Where are you from? You got a girlfriend? Tell me her name. Things like that. Well, I had this group of guys that I will not reveal their names for obvious reasons in a minute, but they were my last pickup of the day, and I was taking them to a residence hall on campus, and I will not reveal the name of the residence hall because that might reveal who they were. And they're going through their whole deal. We get to the very last guy, and we're going through the whole list of questions. I wanted to know their favorite Bible verse. I wanted them to sing to me the 3rd verse of their favorite song. And this one young man did all of that. And then he said, what else is left? And I said, well, girlfriend, tell me about your girlfriend. He said, I'm a transfer student, and I played a particular sport at another school in another state, but I'm originally from a different state. And so he said, really, that's a difficult question to answer. He said, I have a girlfriend in Missouri, and her name is Becky. And I have another girlfriend in Texas, and her name is Susan. And I'm looking for a girlfriend here in Oklahoma. I said, dude, this is on the worldwide internet. We're just broadcasting to the whole world, so you're going to be in serious trouble if Carson, doesn't edit this out. So Carson, you might help a dear brother out by not revealing all of his love life all over the internet. So I believe that that's just a fun thing. The third thing that I believe is I believe that we're better at teaching line dances than we are at teaching scripture. Now, I came to this conclusion at Southern Supper, and those of you that are new students, you were there at Southern Supper. Those of you that have been here for a while, you may remember back to Southern Supper, and it's a great night of eating barbecue, and there's a time where we teach you the alma mater, and then there's line dancing. I love line dancing. I don't do line dancing. Everybody asks me every year, can we teach you to line dance? And every year I say, no, you can't. I know you could try, but it would not be a good thing for me. It wouldn't be a good thing for you. It wouldn't be a good thing for the school. I'm not gonna line dance. But here's what I love. I love watching you line dance. And it's amazing to me. I don't know how you remember all of the steps that go with the different songs and all that, but I will tell you, honestly, I drove away the other night just thinking to myself, how could we teach scripture in a similar way that scripture would get as embedded into your life as line dancing. That's on us, it's not on you. I'm still trying to figure that out. I don't have an answer to that. But that leads me to the fourth thing. This is maybe the most serious thing. I believe in the Bible. I just believe in God's word. And I know that that's new for some of you. For some of you, maybe before you got to SNU, you never had opened a Bible. But I believe in the Bible. I can tell you story after story of how it's impacted my life and what it's done for me. It's a book that I've read over and over again. It's a book that I open every single day. It's a book that I can't imagine not having as a part of my life. And Southern Nazarene University, for our entire 125 years now, has made that a key component of what this place is all about. And that's going to continue. So every year we choose a verse of the year. And we call it the SNU verse of the year. And there have been a variety of them. Last year, our verse of the year was Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. Proverbs 3, 5, and 6 says, trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways, acknowledge him, God, and he will direct your paths. That's a powerful verse when you think about it. Now, there's an onus on us, that is that we've got to do the trusting. We trust in him with not part of our heart or some of our heart, but all of our heart. We decide that we're not going to try and do things the way that we want to do them or the way that we think that we could, but we're not going to lean on our own understanding. We're going to acknowledge him as the king, as the ruler, as the director of our life. And when we do that, we can count on him to direct our path, to help us find our way in life. Well, this morning we introduce a new verse. You heard it just a few minutes ago. It's found in a couple of different places in the New Testament. They're the words of Jesus. It's called the Lord's Prayer. And Matthew 6:10 is where we're going to specifically look today. But throughout the semester and next semester too, you're going to hear some more messages about the Lord's Prayer because we think it's that important, it's that powerful in your life. And Matthew 6:10 just simply says, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. God's will be done at SNU in my life as it is in heaven. And our hope and our prayer is that by the end of this semester, by the end of this year, there's not a person listening to me that wouldn't be able to say the Lord's Prayer. There won't be any tests. We're not going to check you as we check you out of chapel to ask you if you can say the Lord's Prayer. And maybe right now you don't feel like you need the Lord's Prayer, but I will guarantee you there will come some moment, some point in your life when the Lord's Prayer is going to become really, really, really important in your life. Jesus had his own little university. It was a very, very small university. It was an unaccredited university. You couldn't get a diploma from his university, but there were 12 guys that were the main students of his university, and they followed him around. And they did some unusual things. They went on some pretty fantastic boat rides. They did some hiking in the mountains. They hung out at the beach sometimes. They went on fishing trips. Their food service was a little bit spotty and a little bit erratic. They didn't have Chick-fil-A, but they did have on a couple of occasions an all-you-can-eat buffet. Challenge was that it was only bread and fish. Jesus would disappear from time to time from his students, and they couldn't find him. And he would go off to what the Bible describes as deserted places or solitary places, places where he would just go and be alone by himself with God, and he prayed. Now, I confess to you this morning that I don't really understand this. I don't understand Jesus praying to God. I mean, Jesus was God, fully man, but he's praying to his Father, and he goes to these places, and on one of these occasions, Luke chapter 11 records this, he comes back, and when he comes back from praying, one of the disciples says to him, Lord, would you teach us to pray? Now, I find that kind of fascinating too, because they didn't ask to be taught to heal. I think if I had been there, I would have been asking for that. I'd like to be able to do what you do, which is just touch blind people and help blind people to see, and touch people's ears and help them to hear, and raise people that can't walk on their own two legs to be able to walk. But they didn't ask for that. They weren't asking for the ability to be able to heal. And they didn't ask for the ability to preach. They had seen him preach to hundreds and thousands of people, but it wasn't that they asked to learn. They asked to learn how to pray. And when they asked for instructions on how to pray, he said, well, when you pray, pray like this: Our Father. That's significant. People didn't call God Father up until the point that Jesus arrived. But Jesus kind of throws off all restraint, and he calls God the Father all the time, with the exception of one time, and that's when he's on the cross, and he says, my God, why have you forsaken me? But for Jesus, it was our Father who art in heaven. Hallowed be your name, holy be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day, not tomorrow, not next week, not next month. Give us today our daily bread. Forgive us our debts or our trespasses as we forgive our debtors or our trespassers. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For yours is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever and ever. Well, let's focus for just a few moments on this: your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. I grew up a few blocks from the Atlantic Ocean, and we had sand dunes there at the beach. And when I was a kid, we played this game called King of the Hill. Anybody ever played King of the Hill? You know, the object of the game is that somebody gets up on top of the hill, and then everybody else's job is to try and dethrone the king, get the king off of the hill, and then they become the king of the hill. I hated that game. And the reason I hated that game is probably not obvious to you now looking at me, but in those days, I was like skinny and scrawny. I could drink all of the milkshakes, eat all of the ice cream, all of that kind of stuff, and I couldn't gain an ounce. And so I never got to be king of the hill. I wanted to be king of the hill, but I couldn't be king of the hill. I wasn't strong enough. I wasn't big enough to be king of the hill. It's just a game, right? But in real life, I've tried to be the king of the hill, and I'm guessing that you have too. Some of you are still the king of the hill in your life. And when we believe that we are our own king, then we believe we determine our own destiny. We arrange our own path, our own affairs. We govern our own lives. We become the specialists in selfish, self-centered living, where all of our life revolves around me and mine. Here's what I'm trying to say to you this morning. I think it's easier to say your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven, but it's got to be more than words. You'll probably hear a number of messages about the Lord's Prayer, and specifically verse 10 from Matthew 6 this year. But I want to give you just my own 3 quick thoughts about this particular verse: your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. The first is simply this: God has a will for my life and for your life, and they're not the same. In fact, they're not the same for the person that's sitting next to you. I enjoyed some time this summer with my wife, and we took our granddaughters to Moody Gardens in Galveston, Texas, where we saw monkeys and otters and parrots and pythons and hundreds of other reptiles and mammals and insects. This is a picture of our granddaughter, Balin. Is she not the cutest child you've ever seen in your entire life? I got no response from you at all about... I'm not going to tell her when I see her, because she'd be really disappointed that you don't think she's the cutest thing you've ever seen. We could not get her away from this particular display. I don't know if you've ever seen this display, but this display has 999 blue balls in this machine. And there's one red ball. And the job that you have if you're playing with a machine is to try and find the red ball. Now the object of this whole deal is that they're trying to illustrate for you the power of a shark to be able to detect one drop of blood in the water. 1 in a million. 1 in a million. Ladies, has a guy ever looked you deep in the eyes and said, "You're 1 in a million"? Have you ever wished that a guy would look you in the eyes and say, you're one in a million? Here's my advice if they do that. Run away. That's probably the first advice is run away. You're probably hanging out with the guy who's got a girlfriend in Missouri and Texas, and it's probably just a line that he's using. No, actually, if a guy says that to you, you need to say, I'm not. The truth is, I'm 1 in 8 billion. Because there's 8 billion people alive on planet Earth today, and not one of them is like you. So you're 1 in 8 billion. If you want to take it a step further, you can say you're 1 in 117 billion. That's how many people they think have inhabited Earth since time began, 117 billion. And you know what God would say? God would say, I've never had the same plan for any of those 117 billion. Psalm 139 tells us that we're fearfully and wonderfully made. We're all different. Every one of us has a different set of fingerprints. Every one of us has a different genetic code. Every one of us has a different personality. We may have some similarities in the way that we act and the way we talk and the things that we do, but we're all different. And what's amazing to me is that God has this customized, specialized, detailed plan that's just for you. And he's got one that's just for me. And the question becomes, can I trust God? Can I believe that his plan is better than my mom's plan for my life, or better than my friend's plan for my life, or better than my plan for my life? Well, I can't answer that question for you, but I can share my experience and tell you that the best decision by far that I ever made in my entire life was to say yes to God and yes to his plan, because my life turned out far different and much better than if I had done things my way. So God has a will for your life, and it's different for all of us. And the second thing I know is that I have a choice and you have a choice about what we do with that will. We can embrace it. We can run from it. We can fight with God over that plan. I have a good friend who he did both. He fought it and he ran from it. He attended a school just like this. In fact, it's one of our sister Nazarene schools. And my friend Joe said that he didn't want to have anything to do with God's plan for his life. And so he was doing his own thing. And in fact, one day he came to chapel drunk. Sat on the back row. Listened to the message. And in that moment, heard God's voice calling him one more time, saying, Joe, I've got a plan for your life. And it's not the plan that you're living right now. And Joe made a decision that day that he was going to wave the white flag of surrender, and he was going to trust God's plan. And he did. Now here's the thing that I love about this story. It's God's sense of humor. My friend Joe, he graduates from that university. When he graduates, he goes to work in the office of the campus pastor. And a few years down the road, my friend Joe becomes the Blair Spindle of that university. He is the campus pastor at that university. How in the world does something like that happen? It happens because you decide that you're not going to play king of the hill anymore. You're going to trust God. You're going to trust his plan for your life. But it's something that you get to do. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. One last thought about this verse. And it's maybe my favorite thought. God will continue to love you, and he will continue to pursue you regardless of what you do with this prayer and his invitation in your life. You can fight it. You can run from it. You can say, I'm going to be the king of the hill. I'm going to be the queen of the hill. I'm going to do what I want to do in life. And it doesn't change the fact that God still loves you, that God is going to continue to pursue you. Jesus tells us in this Lord's Prayer that not only do we have a Father, but we also have a King, and there's a kingdom. And this portion of the prayer then becomes this invitation, and the invitation is a simple one. It's simply to accept God as sovereign ruler of our lives. That's what you do when you pray this portion of the prayer. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth in my life as it is in heaven. The kingdom question, who is the king? A huge issue to be resolved in the life, I believe, of every person. And I would predict that the way that you answer that question determines whether or not your life is going to be a continual battle or whether or not your life is going to be a blessing. When I pray, your kingdom come, your will be done, I'm willing to relinquish the rule of my own affairs, to abstain from making my own decisions in order to allow God by his indwelling Spirit to decide what I should do. So when you pray, your will be done, it may be a prayer of yielding your will to God's will, and you may have to pray that prayer repeatedly until one day you're willing to live with the results. Many years ago, I met a man who extended an invitation to me to fly with him in his plane. I think we've got a picture of the plane right there. That's a 1941 Stearman. So that was built a long time before anybody in this room, including me, was born. It's a really cool plane. I will tell you, it's one of the funnest things that I've ever done. I didn't know this guy. We just met through a business relationship, and he invites me to come out and to fly. I sat in the front cockpit. That's not me, but I sat in a plane like that in the front cockpit. He flew the plane from the back. What I didn't know when I accepted the invitation was that the plan was for us, if I was willing, to fly aerobatics. Now, I don't know whether you know what aerobatics are, but some of you are part of Stunt the Sport. I've learned that it's Stunt the Sport, not just stunt, but Stunt the Sport. It's basically doing things in an airplane that you might do on the ground, flipping and tumbling and all of those kinds of things. And so my friend David invites me out, and we roll out his airplane out of the hangar, and we roll it out onto a grass runway, and he begins to give me all of the safety instructions and tells me how I'm going to strap myself in, and I'm sitting on a parachute, and then if it becomes necessary, I'll unclip here and I'll unclip there, and I'll step out onto the wing, and I'll jump out and I'll count to 3,000 and pull this cord, and and all of this is not giving me, it's not your typical safety instruction that you get on an airplane, about fastening your seatbelts. And he said to me, you're gonna have a little cap on, and there's an earpiece in there, and I'm gonna be able to talk to you. You're not gonna be able to talk to me, but we're gonna go up in the air. We're gonna fly around a little bit, get you comfortable in the plane, and then once you're comfortable, we're gonna ask you whether or not it's okay if we start the show. I said, what's the show? He said, well, we'll do some barrel rolls. That's where the plane just flips. We'll fly upside down for a while. You get that? We'll do something called a hammerhead. A hammerhead is where a plane flies straight up in the air until it loses any kind of the physics majors could tell us this, but it's basically there's nothing underneath the wings to keep the plane up in the air, and so the plane will stall, and when the plane stalls, then it turns toward the ground, and you're flying straight to the ground, and you're hoping and praying that there's enough of whatever that thrust is that comes up underneath the wings that you can fly again. So I'm proud